This week on Crossroads Politics.
September 12th, the day that my private post was made public without my consent, was one of the worst days of my life.
The fight over free speech comes to Indiana. When can speaking your mind cost you your job? And President Trump says Tylenol can cause autism. From the United Nations to a looming government shutdown, we're tracking the big developments this week in Washington. Plus,
right now we're kind of being shut out of some of our best markets.
Hoosier farmers feeling the pinch as China stops buying Indiana's soybeans. Indiana tries to find a new market. Hey there, great to have you for this week's Crossroads Politics here on WTHR+. I'm Dustin Grove. A lot to get to. We'll have those stories. Also, the debate over data centers, the public pushback, and why supporters say there is a place for them. Also, big developments regarding Indiana's top jobs agency, the IEDC, and an audit to look at where the money is going. But let's begin with tariffs and their impact on Hoosier farmers. Agriculture, as you likely know, it's a massive part of our state's economy. Farmers say those tariffs have really put them in a tough spot. Emily Longnecker looked into this issue this week, and Emily, you talked to a local farmer about it.
Yeah, so we went out to Hendricks County, just outside of Danville. It's almost harvest time there, and the farmer that we talked with, who owns 2,200 acres, isn't sure where his crop's going to end up this year.
7 generations. That's how long David Hardin's family's been farming in Indiana. But when it comes to passing the family legacy down to the next generation, Hardin can't be sure of what's next.
Is it going to be financially viable, to be able to have, a continuing tradition here?
It's a question that keeps him up at night, along with the fate of this season's harvest.
It's definitely something that weighs on you, to know that you've got a product that's sitting there that, we believe is probably the highest quality soybeans grown anywhere in the world. And, they're sitting there looking for a market.
The biggest international market for a quarter of U.S. soy and corn crops, China, is now closed.
Right now we're kind of being shut out of some of our best markets.
Hardin says that's because of retaliatory tariffs China put on the United States in response to the tariffs the U.S. issued first.
The U.S. exports about a quarter of our soybean crop to China in a normal year, and so with that customer gone, we're left trying to find a place for that.
Indy!
One of those places, Taiwan. Thursday, a delegation of agricultural officials from Taiwan signed an agreement to buy more soy and corn from the U.S., including from Indiana, over the next 3 years.
Taiwan traditionally has taken about 2 to 3% of all the U.S. soybean exports.
Compare that to China's usual 25%. Hardin says that's a lot of ground to make up, and a lot of soy and corn that could be left sitting around. Hardin's lucky he's got room to store it, for now. The real test, he says, will come next year at this time, if he's still got soy and corn in storage from the year before.
You're going to market right out of the field and essentially getting those fire sale prices.
Leaving Hardin and other farmers just like him with no shortage of concerns to keep him up at night.
And Hardin told me that he is encouraged by this deal, this trade agreement with Taiwan for them to buy more soy and corn from the United States. But he also hopes that a deal can be made with China eventually. He says it's a much bigger country with a much bigger market for crops. President Trump has said he hopes to use money from the tariffs to provide relief to farmers hurt by the tariffs.
Well, it's hard to know how the tariffs are impacting the larger economy. This week, the Commerce Department upgraded its estimated growth for last quarter to almost 3%. On Friday, we learned inflation for August was also about 3%, which is above the Federal Reserve's target.
We've also been seeing weak jobs numbers down sharply from the post-COVID hiring boom. President Trump has loudly criticized reports that show weakness in the economy, accusing the agencies that are putting them together of being, quote, anti-Trump.
All right, now to an update on a topic we have been following closely here on the 13 News and Crossroads Politics. What is happening with the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, the IEDC, and you were there for their quarterly meeting, a big meeting this week.
Right. So the IEDC, it's a quasi-state agency that spends taxpayer money to bring new businesses to Indiana.
And the governor ordered an audit, a forensic audit of the IEDC, really within a few weeks of taking office, he said, in an effort to be more transparent.
Right. He campaigned on that, more transparency. He did. He also replaced the entire 9-member board and ordered that audit, as you said. Now it seems we are going to see the results as early as this time next week, but a spokesperson familiar with the report and the audit told me the audit found nothing criminal when it comes to how the IEDC did business for the past 2 years. Governor Mike Braun said what the audit did do was confirm the need for more transparency and accountability when it comes to how taxpayer dollars are spent.
We have and will be implementing new internal policies and controls to ensure full transparency in the use of taxpayer dollars.
The governor didn't specify what those new internal policies would be, but did confirm one change happening with how the IEDC does business.
The Indiana Economic Development Foundation has not accepted any new contributions since April. That was another entity within the IEDC, and we are putting together a plan to wind it down.
The Indiana Economic Development Foundation is a nonprofit affiliated with the IEDC. According to its website, it raises private funds to support the IEDC's work. This past spring, Braun froze its accounts after he called for an audit of the IEDC. According to the Indiana Capital Chronicle, that freeze was partly over concerns about how the IEDC was spending some of that money on travel, meals, and entertainment as part of its work. The audit was done by FTI Consulting and began in mid-May. It looked at how the IEDC did business from January 2022 through December 2024. The governor touted his commitment to growing business in Indiana, not just by attracting large companies through the work of the IEDC, but also by prioritizing businesses on Main Street, acknowledging economic development looks different in different areas of the state, saying success would be measured in 2 ways: wage growth and new job opportunities for Hoosiers. And the IEDC board voted to release that report after it's been gone over by legal teams to make sure nothing in it needs redacted for legal reasons.
Right, and of course our deep dive into the IEDC, how it works, why there are so many questions about what it does. It's available on demand. We did like 45 minutes on this.
A lot. It's really informative.
It really is. A whole team effort, including our 13 Investigates team. You can find it on demand anytime right here on WTHR+. Don't go anywhere, Emily, because still ahead this week, we're keeping a close eye on the action in Washington and New York, the president's address to the UN, and accusations of triple sabotage. But first,
I do not regret the post I made, and I would not take back what I said.
Should Hoosiers be punished for political speech online? The question heads to court next on Crossroads Politics.
welcome back. In the wake of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination, many Hoosiers are asking, can you be fired for something you post or say online? They're asking because that's exactly what the ACLU says happened to a former Ball State University administrator. And now they say that move violated her First Amendment rights. Emily, you went over this lawsuit. What'd you find?
Well, Swartz's termination is one of many that we've seen across the country in the wake of social media posts that people made about Kirk's assassination. And the ACLU of Indiana believes there's likely to be more lawsuits like this one filed. This lawsuit alleges that although Swartz's opinion was on a controversial subject, her speech was protected by the First Amendment and her firing was unconstitutional.
Well, the day that my private post was made public without my consent was one of the worst days of my life.
Even so, former Ball State University Director of Health Promotion and Advocacy, Suzanne Swartz, says she stands by the post she made following Charlie Kirk's assassination.
I do not regret the post I made, and I would not take back what I said. I believe that I, along with every other person in this country, have First Amendment rights and to be able to speak on a number of things.
The university isn't commenting on the lawsuit, saying that's out of respect for the judicial process. But initially, after Swartz's firing, said her post caused significant disruption on campus and was, quote, inconsistent with the distinctive nature and trust of her leadership. The ACLU of Indiana sees it differently.
It's not the case that a person speaking in their personal capacity, on their personal time, on their personal Facebook page can be seen as representing a viewpoint of the university, and one should expect that government employees hold all kinds of beliefs or opinions that their employer wouldn't necessarily adopt as their own, but that's not the standard the First Amendment imposes.
According to the lawsuit, Swartz posted her thoughts on Kirk's death on her private Facebook page that only her friends could see. The lawsuit alleges someone screenshotted that post, editing it to show it next to Swartz's employee listing in Ball State's staff directory. And that's what made its way around social media, including to Attorney General Todd Rokita's Eyes on Education portal. In the days following Kirk's death, Rokita asked Hoosiers to report educators and administrators rationalizing or celebrating Kirk's assassination. Swartz said it's all led to calls with people leaving vulgar messages, including one phone call that caused her to file a police report.
I did receive a voicemail to my personal cell phone that listed my full name, including my middle name, my title at work, my full home address, and that maybe I deserve what Charlie got, is what the person said.
Swartz called it all unbelievable that she's in a position she never imagined.
I've had a wide range of emotions in the wake of this entire situation, and they come and go.
The lawsuit is asking for damages, which could include lost income. The ACLU says Swartz does not want her job back at the university. It does ask that the university expunge any record of Swartz' termination, alleging that it was improper and should never have happened in the first place.
Also, Jimmy Kimmel, the late-night comedian who was suspended over his comments about Charlie Kirker in the wake of the assassination, he returns to the air this week on some ABC stations, not all of them. Those owned by Sinclair and Nexstar, which is awaiting regulatory approval to merge with our parent company Tegna, they're going to continue to preempt Kimmel's program because of the comments. Democrats have condemned what they call censorship, and they are being joined by some strong voices on the right. Texas Senator Ted Cruz condemned ABC for pulling Kimmel off the air. And also this week, I want to show you a post on social media from Senator Todd Young of Indiana. He weighed in on social media. He posted to his X account, "We need to cherish and protect free speech." And then he shared an editorial praising Senator Ted Cruz for criticizing the head of the FCC. There it is right there. There's the post. Cruz was critical of the FCC chair's comments regarding late night host Jimmy Kimmel. Those comments were seen as a threat to censor him. So the conversation and the debate over all of that continues. Meanwhile, we're going to move on here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, here in Indianapolis, Indiana's Attorney General is warning city leaders to, quote, keep their hands off the Marion County Sheriff's budget.
Todd Rokita says blocking sheriff's cooperation with federal immigration authorities could break state law. Alex Almanza shows us how council members responded.
Inside the City-County building, the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee took up the 2026 budget, with the Attorney General's warning hanging over the room. A letter from Todd Rokita to the council this week reads in part, if the council attempts to place such restrictions on the sheriff's cooperation with federal authorities, I will consider taking legal action. Rokita argues state law prevents local governments from interfering with cooperation between the sheriff and federal immigration authorities. It follows a September 3rd committee meeting where Sheriff Kerry Forrestal confirmed Marion County is hosting ICE detainees, sometimes upwards of 100, under a federal arrangement. The county is reimbursed $75 a day for each detainee, money that goes into the general fund. It all sparked criticism from community groups and led some counselors to question whether the jail should continue cooperating with ICE. Counselors say the AG is misrepresenting their role in the budget process.
For the AG to think that we were cutting the sheriff's office is absolutely ridiculous. In fact, I voted no because there are funding issues at our sheriff's office.
Counselor Krista Carlino says the no means there's more work to be done outside the budget.
I don't feel like threats from the AG are going to do much to help our problems here. In fact, I wish the Attorney General would help us secure the funds that the state owes us and do the work there so that we can serve those individuals who we house and bed here in Marion County.
Some, like Counselor Michael Paul Hart, voted no, but not over ICE.
So there was concerns that I have with the IMPD budget on police morale. Like the last thing we want to do is lose any police, and the one thing the police chief asked for was dollars to make sure that he could get new cars for his officers.
13 News has reached out to Rokita's office for an updated statement, but we did not receive that in time for this newscast. In terms of the public safety budget, that now heads to the City County Council for their October 6th meeting, where it will be voted on. In Indianapolis, Alex Almanza, 13 News.
More to come. President Trump went to the UN this week to address the General Assembly.
And he said they were not doing their jobs.
It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war.
Fallout from the president's address next on Crossroads Politics.
Welcome back. This week, President Trump addressed the UN General Assembly.
The president suffered some technical issues around his address. An escalator he tried to ride up stopped halfway. He also reported issues with the teleprompter. Trump called it a, quote, triple sabotage, though the UN said the president's staff was to blame.
During the address, the president took aim at the institution, accusing it of wasting its potential to end conflict. Take a listen here.
What is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war.
Israel's wars with Iran and Hamas have gotten a lot of attention. Representatives from both had to use the internet to speak to the General Assembly because they're barred from coming to the U.S. where the UN General Assembly is located.
This week, President Trump also said that the active ingredient in Tylenol, acetaminophen, taken during pregnancy is tied to a higher risk of autism.
So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good.
The president's claims received pushback from Tylenol, the Autism Science Foundation, and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine. They all said that the drug is safe for pregnant patients dealing with pain or fever.
In the meantime, the U.S. government is barreling toward a shutdown. Congress has not yet passed a budget or a continuing resolution.
Yeah, lawmakers are running out of time and they're on vacation. Congress takes off for Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, but they only have until October 1st to pass a new budget or the federal government will shut down.
And in past shutdowns, that's led to immediate furloughs of workers performing what's considered to be non-essential work. But this time around, the White House has reportedly told agencies to just try and fire those workers instead if their work does not line up with the president's priorities. Not only would the workers be fired, but their positions would reportedly be eliminated permanently. Google withdraws one data center proposal, but more keep cropping up around central Indiana from various companies. Still ahead, I'm going to sit down with our Alex Almanza, who's been following the issue to find out what's driving Indiana's data center gold rush. That's next. Now to the rising trend sweeping across central Indiana, the growth of large-scale data centers and the battles they're stirring in communities from Marion County to Morgan County and beyond. This debate over where to put the servers is more than just a zoning question. It's actually becoming a defining issue for development, infrastructure, and democracy, too. Our Alex Almanza has become our go-to reporter on this topic here at 13 News. Thank you so much for sitting down and talk with us about it.
Yeah.
So first of all, do we know why these big tech firms are focusing in on Indiana specifically?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. One of the biggest reasons Indiana's kind of become the hotbed for data centers, I mean, there are a lot of factors. One of them is the vast amount of land that we have. Second is we have a very predictable weather pattern. Like if I'm trying to build a data center, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to put a facility in the deserts of Arizona. You need a lot of cooling capabilities to put a data center there. It's going to take up a lot of power. You also need to think about water resources. So when it comes to Indiana, that has a bit more of a weather predictability. Another reason is Indiana is offering a lot of tax incentives. The land is cheap here. And you know, that's kind of one of the reasons why a lot of these companies are starting out a little bit more anonymous. Mm-hmm. If I find out that Google's trying to buy land and you know the name is out there really early, it's kind of it's a disadvantage to them because then someone can really skyrocket the prices, and you know Google really
right.
has a
Google's
lot of
got deep pockets.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Okay. So we have heard though, and we have seen in so many cases, neighbors, people in these communities say, we don't want this here for a number of reasons, right? Actually, Google withdrew its proposal earlier this week in Franklin Township because there was so much pushback, but that doesn't mean it's dead, right?
Right, and I think that might, at least from my viewpoint and a lot of others, that might be a more strategic move.
Okay.
They withdrew their proposal minutes before the council was even able to vote on it. Mm-hmm. And so what that does is that leaves the door open for Google or any other petitioner for that matter to come back in 3 months and say, hey, we want to refile, we want to come back with a new strategy. Whereas opposed if if the council were to vote on it and let's say they voted no, which is more than likely, they would have had to wait a year. They would have had to put a 1 year timeout on that piece of land, and no new petitions would be able to be filed for that specific property.
And we should reiterate that the City County Council, basically Google knew that they didn't have the votes, right? The City County Council.
Yeah, and that's one of the, I think that's one of the more surprising things as well, is Google went into that meeting knowing, more likely knowing that they didn't have the votes that they needed to approve something like this. When I was there at that meeting, I was sitting at the media area, and a lot of people noticed that the Google representatives got up in the middle of the meeting, not during the agenda item. I think they were on something else. They got up, they left, and I assume they probably talked about, what does this look like? They were probably game planning. The attorneys came back and they looked a little noticeably frazzled, maybe a little bit more frustrated, and it was not until they got to that budget or agenda item that the attorney, Joe Calderon, got up and said, I have an announcement to make. We are letting people know our intention to withdraw this proposal. And that's when the room blew up into a cheer.
Yeah. There was the proposal in Martindale-Brightwood neighborhood. Residents are, if not against it, what word would you use to describe it? Skeptical, curious to know what's in it for us, right?
Yes, and that's one of the biggest things that came up. One thing I noticed that was different from this community is they were more questioning how is it going to benefit the neighborhood itself. They were very skeptical about a company from Los Angeles coming out and plopping something in the middle of their neighborhood, and it just seemed a little weird to them. So they were understandably, very curious. They had a lot of questions, and at times it got a little tense because a lot of neighbors there say that they want direct investment in their communities. They want a lot of community programs, and another really interesting reason that they want more answers is they want a lot of skilled tradespeople in that community to be part of that development, and they don't want people coming from Los Angeles or somewhere else to build and then just leave.
What are the reasons to build? The supporters, what's their argument? Why do we need these here? Why is it good for Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are saying that it's not only good for Indiana, but it's also good for the United States in general. Right now, the U.S. is kind of in a competition with other countries to be on the leading edge of data centers and AI development. And Indiana has really been trying to push themselves forward. Obviously, Governor Braun has been pushing tax incentives. The Indiana Economic Development Corporation gave a few tax incentives to a few projects around the state. Supporters really just say that this is an opportunity for Indiana to be number one. Governor Braun has been on the record saying that, right now at the pace that we're going for data centers, we don't have the capability to power them. So that's why he's trying to push more power supply for the whole state in general to power these data centers. They could take up a lot of power.
Well, and that's some of the concern among community members is the strain on electricity and the concern that all of that power is going to be paid for by the ratepayers, people in the communities. Other people are concerned about water. What else are their concerns?
Yeah, I think one of their other concerns is the tax abatements.
These are big tax abatements.
Yeah, Franklin Township's proposed data center, I believe it was 40 years of tax abatements on equipment. And for neighbors to hear that, they wonder, why is a company like Google or or any other company for that matter, getting so many tax abatements, but we're struggling to pay electricity bills, or our local school needs supplies, needs funding. So there are a lot of questions in between that. There's a lot of debate on both sides.
And Governor Braun sat down with our 13 Sunrise team earlier this week, and he was asked specifically about that. Should the state be offering these incentives right now, given our current climate with infrastructure? Here's what he had to say.
Do we still give them incentives to build?
So economic development, which would involve that, and that's going to be more balanced because that's going to be different.
So let me ask you, does the state give
They
big
can.
benefits?
They can.
Okay.
They don't get it necessarily.
Okay, but
we need to be more careful about supporting our existing businesses, smaller businesses, which is what I had. We never got any attention. You really incentivize entrepreneurs, because that's the least expensive way to do it, a more balanced approach, and a more balanced approach on how we address the cost of electricity. Ratepayers and generators are going to be looked at, and that's why I put a committee together for these openings on the IURC to make sure we get individuals in there that will take a balanced perspective in terms of what makes sense.
And I think once these data centers are built, it's really just trying to figure out, how are they going to benefit the communities in the long term. Right now, we're kind of in that boom, and we're trying to figure out how do we continue that leading edge without falling behind. And I think Indiana, with the tax incentives, the amount of land that we have, the cost of that land, and a lot of other factors are really going to determine, are these data centers right for Indiana, and are we going to be the blueprint for other states as well?
All right, Alex Almanza, thank you so much for joining us. You're doing a great job covering this complex issue on both sides of the argument. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dustin.
And that does it for this week's episode of Crossroads Politics here on WTHR+. For Alex, Emily, and all of us here at 13 News, I'm Dustin Grove. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you next time.